In 2026, the rookie teams are taking over Valorant. BBL were first seeds in the EMEA region and made more magic on the Masters stage. However, only a year ago, they were preparing for the first Challengers competition of the calendar, like our 14 teams are today, hoping at the end of the road they can eclipse the bigger names and make it to Champions. Tier 2 has constantly been the proving grounds for future talent, especially in this region starved of international success. So that begs the question, who should we be looking out for next to make that step up? I'm HazzaJC, and hopefully I can help give you an answer by the end of this video, as I'm going to be previewing all of the teams playing in Challengers EMEA Stage 1, with the group stage starting in 2 days' time. So let's get into it. So here we are on Liquipedia with VALORANT Challengers EMEA Stage 1, and before I get into any specifics to do with roster, I am going to be doing a quick rundown of what the format is and how qualification to this event works in the first place. Now, if you're an avid watcher of Tier 2 in EMEA, you know it's not the easiest to follow, so hopefully this can shed a little bit of light on what that process looked like and how exactly these teams got here in the first place, because one of the big changes this year within the region is that Riot have relaxed the rules for each of the tournament organizers in terms of how they want to set up their own region. That also includes the region lock rules. Previously, 3 out of the 5 players in every region had to be from that region. Now, you'll see in most cases that isn't a factor anymore, so you can actually really make a roster with whichever players you want, which is good, because when we get to the later end of the year and they're competing against VCT teams who only have the broad stroke of 5 out of 5 players, or at least, you know, you can only have 1 import, right, from outside of EMEA, makes it a bit more of a level playing field. Now, for the most part, it is 2 teams from each region, with the exception of Northeast, because that is a merger of the previous Northern European League and the Eastern European League. We've got DACH, France, Turkey, Spain, and MENA in here as well, which is also somewhat divided between the Middle East and the North African teams. So, starting off with DACH, it's actually the most confusing, of course, because DACH never play by the same rules as everyone else. From the region that brought you best of 2s, we now have the DACH Evolution Qualifier. So Stage 1 was its own separate canonical event, I suppose. CGN won that, by the way. Let me just make it clear. They beat everyone else on LAN and didn't qualify to this event. In fact, they missed out on qualification entirely. They finished 4th. This was a bracket made up of all of the different circuits within DACH, including their Tier 3 teams in Project V, and then also their Game Changers teams in Project Queens, or I think now it's known as Esports Queens. So, I mean, the initiative is really cool, but to me, this would have made more sense as like an off-season event or even a qualifier to Challengers in the first place, rather than one for their inter-regional competition. Eintracht Frankfurt and FOKUS getting through, though. Bit of a rivalry spike between these 2 teams, and when you look at the rosters and some of the, you know, ex-Tier 1 talent names that we've had on a few different rosters, like Shinnok on Metasport from last year as well. Pays had a little bit of time in MENA. Fizzy, honestly, he was on FOKUS before he was on Mouse, probably deserved a bigger shot, bigger opportunity. Jamalino, a new face from the off-season. Yeah, I think these are probably the 2 strongest teams that DACH probably could have sent. France was a lot more straightforward. In fact, they didn't even run a kickoff event where other regions had run a preliminary event to qualify a single team to VALORANT EMEA Clash, which was the event between the VCT EMEA teams that didn't make Masters Santiago and the best of the Challengers teams. They only qualified 1 team from that, from Stage 1, and then the 2 finalists, Joblife and Mandatory, were the ones that moved forwards anyway. And again, these feel like the de facto choices in France, both legacy organizations that have competed here for many years. Northeast, my home region, formerly Northern Europe, joined with East in the last year or so, is always a bit of a tricky one, because there are 4 spots now, so you see quite a few more upsets. The Swiss format, which happens in the group stages with a couple of best of ones before you move into the qualification best of threes or elimination best of threes can always create some pretty crazy moments. Last year, we saw Liquid Academy, after winning the first stage, fail to make it out of the Swiss stage due to a variety of different factors. So it can always be a turbulent time, but it looks like the cream has risen to the top once again. We've got Enterprise and TLA joined by Pixel Lumina, who have been regulars now at making it to some of these events, but not really kicked on in the group stage. Excited to see how they do. The real package that no one knows what to expect from right now is probably MIR, and this is a CIS mix with Redgar leading it. Redgar taking on a few different projects since he left GX, but nothing that's really found all too many exciting results, honestly, in Tier 2 and Tier 3 alike. So interested to see how far they go, but yeah, this was not too shocking for me. Another region which enjoyed its best of twos in the past and plenty of quirks is Spain, a very strong region in 2026, but with a few different metrics for qualifying the couple of teams that we've got. They concluded their stage 1 already, they're into stage 2 quite rapid. The winner of that was Barca, so they've managed to get their place back in stage 1 of Challengers EMEA, but instead of bringing Dynasty along with them, they've gone to circuit points to take UCAM through as the secondary name. UCAM, of course, won stage 1, and that meant that they qualified to EMEA Clash. They were a grand finalist there in the Omega bracket. They looked like a really exciting team, so our question would be, are they going to be as good now as they were at the start of the year in Spain? Have they made the improvements? It's a strange one to me, at the very least, but that's trying to wrap your head around this one. Those are the rosters that they've sent. Unlucky for Dynasty, but who knows? The year is not done yet. Turkey up next, and the team which they sent to EMEA Clash from their kickoff event was Besiktas. However, it's Misa and S2G that will be representing them this time. And in my mind, looking at least the Misa roster, it's the old guard. It's the names which we've seen play in these tournaments and even in VCT many times in the past. Elite, Pora, Brave, and Kushner have all played in Tier 1 for a host of different names, from BBL to Foot. They've been there, they've done it in the past. Burzy is a veteran in Tier 2 at this point. He missed out a couple of years due to wrist injury, I think it was, and other reasons. Did see him on that Metasport rebuild last year as well, but he's found his feet here, and I'm excited to see how they perform. S2G, on the other hand, is a real mix of players which they've brought up through their academy roster, players that they were trialing with in Project Blender during the off-season. Batu now, I think, has moved to being an in-game leader, at least he was during the off-season. And of course, Riazi, who has been here since the very beginning of this team at this point, when players like Rians were still in Turkey cutting their teeth in Challengers. So always going to be looking at the Turkish region in general as a place where a lot of that new talent is going to be coming from. I think statistically about 30% of the makeup of VCT EMEA, at least in kickoff, was Turkish players across different teams at this point in time. However, we are still missing a few familiar faces like Eternal Fire from maybe showing up. Foot have their own academy roster, but with where their main roster is looking, there are changes that you expect. Besiktas played in stage 1 in Clash, and well, Galatasaray had a great run with some of the new players that they've brought in too in the off season. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be seeing anyone in particular dominate this at all this year because of where things are and the mass exodus of players from 2025 with a double Ascension promotion. So yeah, who knows, but I have to say, always going to be quality here, always going to be a couple names to look out for. Last but not least, of course, we have MENA. Now, this is a tricky one for a multitude of factors, not least because they will be playing on high ping against the other teams based in EMEA, but because they're made up of a couple different regions and due to ongoing issues as well, we're not even entirely certain if participation is guaranteed here from them. But Stallions is the first of those rosters that we can talk about. They finished top of their group in stage 1. That was why they qualified to EMEA Clash. The caveat to that is because because they had the highest aggregate points between the two sub-regions of the Middle East and North Africa. You could probably make the argument that they had a weaker group overall, and that's why they were able to farm the other teams and be the representative for their region. But they still proved that they can upset. They beat Enterprise, and they definitely have the level, right? There are some familiar faces here. Akai even, who we remember from Falcons a couple of years ago. Always good for it, so we'll have to see how they end up doing. The other team is GNG, and this is another roster which has really taken to heart the possibility of crafting a team from all over the place. You're looking at Monoxen, Cunha from the old SAW team in 2024 Ascension, joining up with a couple of North African names here. Tenkai even as well, who spent a bit of time in the north, trying to qualify into Tier 2, never had his chance, and now has done with a couple other faces around him. So I was pleasantly surprised to see these guys qualify, honestly, and I'm not too sure how it is that they're going to end up doing, but that's what it's all about. You can see that within each of their own respective sub-regions, Stallions, who placed first in their group stage, and GNG from a much more competitive group stage, then went on to win their playoff brackets. That's how they were able to qualify. So with that in mind, let's move on to the rankings. If you're finding this video useful, then make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel with notifications on. Those notifications are going to be useful because the group stages of this event are being streamed on watch parties here and there. Might not be the easiest to find. You can go on my channel and count on me to watch some of the matches. So stay tuned for that. Should be good, and we'll see you there. Back to the video. We do have 4 different groups, and the seeding is a bit questionable. I think it has been done randomly because there are a couple of instances, such as Group A, where you've got multiple first seeds, Eintracht and Misa, both placing first in their own respective regions. The same can be said for Enterprise and Barca here as well. And we've got a mixture of 3-team and 4-team groups. So 2 3-team groups, 2 4-team groups, and into my tier list, I'm going to hopefully try and make this make sense for you. The teams at the top will be going straight to playoffs, as only 1 team will qualify from each group. Second are our runners-up. They will be collecting EMEA points, which help them later down the line move on to Challengers EMEA Stage 3, and directly from that into the play-ins and hopefully playoff stage and Shanghai if they want to qualify to Champions with the VCT EMEA teams later this year. Third place walks away with nothing, and of course if you're in 4th, then it doesn't get any better for you or any worse for you than that. We'll start off with the 2 3-team groups, then move into the 4-team groups, and that means we kick things off with Group A. We've got Eintracht Frankfurt, Team Liquid Academy, and Misa Esports. This is a really tough one for me, honestly, because Misa have veteran experience. As I said before, this is a roster made up of names that we've seen playing in these regional events multiple times in the past. They look incredibly strong in general. Do they have what it takes to get past much younger teams, I think, especially on the Liquid Academy side, but with a couple of names who we have seen play at these events before, most notably against Eintracht Frankfurt. These two were in the exact same group when they played towards the latter end of last year. Liquid Academy, of course, not with any potential ambition to move on to Ascension, as they are an Academy team. They're unable to do so. The only VCT Academy team left here, with both Koi and KC missing from the previous year. For everyone who's tuning into this video and maybe wondering, what talents do we need to be looking out for in the next year? Who is it that's actually going to be stepping up to VCT? You know about Kix already, but GSR, 16-year-old talent, 17 now, I think, able to play in VCT in about a year's time. Quite a while until we're going to see that happen, but bucket loads of potential, moved on to Duelist now, playing double Duelist in this team. Looked really good alongside Wanzeru as well. The other young name here would be Rextoned. Now, he had a pretty difficult grand final against Enterprise, but I don't think there are any better name to try and test your grit against, honestly, and he has proven in isolation to be a fantastic individual many times already. Pretty in-game leading this team. I have my questions about him in some of those high-pressure environments, and I think Challengers, equally so, is going to be very demanding from him, but I do expect them to bounce back, especially with the coaching staff as well. Bacon's been leading this team fantastically. And up against some of the other teams, I'm not sure if they're going to have the bottle. Eintracht Frankfurt are, incredibly strong in their own right. Do I maybe put them higher? All right, I've deliberated with myself for about 15 minutes, but if I don't pick something, then this video will never get posted. I'm sorry, Liquid fans. I'm sorry, Eintracht. I gotta go with Misa. I just think it's another Turkish team in an online environment. They've been sparring against some of the best players that the region has at a tier 2 level. They've got the experience. I don't think they're going to buckle under the pressure of a tournament such as this. Liquid yet to make it out of a group stage so far in one of these events. Same for Eintracht. Musashi and Azuri used to that from last year. Yes, there are some big upgrades here. I think Fizzy's a fantastic player. Monster as well. Jamalino too. He has to be the win condition for them if they're going to show up, I think. On the Liquid side, I'm still maybe not completely sold on some of the players in that team, again, in these high-pressure environments. And sure, it's online, right? It's different. The stakes are a little bit lower, but I just can't help but seeing maybe a bit of a crumble come through from these two, where I have less concerns. Misa feels like a slightly safer pair of hands in this kind of situation, so I'm going to go with these three. I could honestly put them in any other order, and I think I would be equally as happy, but this is the one that I'm going to settle on for Group A. Moving on to Group B, I wouldn't say it's necessarily cut and dry, but to not put Enterprise as the top team coming out of this, as the alpha champions in EMEA Clash, already beating 3 different VCT teams, looking like they are ready for those playoffs at the end of the year with the VCT rosters, it would be silly not to. I know Northeast hasn't maybe been the best battlegrounds for them to improve as a roster, but you can see the improvements in the micro. I think they have a really strong fundamental base, which other teams maybe lack a little bit more in this meta when it's so focused on the shooting and the playing off of one another, but the ideas are really good. They've got Shadow and Itopata coaching the roster, the previous existing synergy with Magnum. Lime plays like every role in the game. I've been super impressed with him. Alluri's calling looks to have improved under the tutelage of the coaching staff as well. Prox is doing much better back in a steady challengers environment than all of the trials and tribulations that Tier 1 LAN can prove to bring you with Gentlemates. And Kozzy. How could I not talk about Kozzy? This is the guy which, if you're turning this video on to be looking out for someone to watch, to be excited for the future of our region, it's this 16-year-old Romanian kid who literally just turned 16, wasn't eligible to play challengers until a couple of weeks ago, absolutely smurfed Clash against some of these more well-known teams within the region, and is going to be on the hit list for, I don't know, pretty much every Tier 1 team that can afford him or get their hands on him as soon as he's out of contract potentially with Enterprise, or hopefully for them, helping them on their push towards champs, and who knows where we go in 2027. So yeah, instant shoo-in for me in playoffs. I would be very surprised if they slip this one up, but as we know, that Stallions game in Clash, maybe it could be a bit of a slow burner for them to get things started. The question is then, who do I put in second? Is it Barcelona or is it FOKUS? And it's a little bit of a toss-up for me. If we look at both of the teams here, you can see Barcelona have got Stonesy, who was with Joblife in Ascension, one of the players that they brought in for that. Fatinho, remember from him his time on Giants, played at Champs 2023 for them in their group stage as well. Kajux, who is a Northeast player and looked really good on one of the mixes that he was with last year. Guardi was on Koi Phoenix, and Globex was also on Koi Phoenix as well for a point in time. So yeah, these are players that have played in this competition before. They know their way around the server. They look pretty good. I think Double Duelist fits them quite nicely with these two as well. So FOKUS struggled in the LAN portion of Stage 1, but we're back to another online situation again, and I think that's the story of a lot of these players, where they were in Tier 1 last year and then they've dropped back down. Maybe they couldn't handle it, maybe they needed to improve, it wasn't the right team environment for them. Serial was really unlucky, thrown into a Liquid environment where he had to fill on different roles. Pyrol even more so, that KC team right at the end of the year. So yeah, it's not been an easy one for them. I've been quietly surprised by Mulsi's in-game leading. I think he's improved quite a lot in that. Pays is also a talent. Shinnok is unbelievable. This is another one of those names. Who have we got so far? GSR, Rext, Kozzy, Jamalino, and Shinnok, absolutely. Those are the guys that you're looking out for. He's been absolutely superb. So between these two, I'm going to lean it towards FOKUS. I was thinking maybe that we could go with Barca, but FOKUS, at least in this group stage, I have confidence that they can test these other teams. Playoffs was a completely different conversation for the roster they had last year. They only won, a few maps, I think, throughout the whole year in interregionals, whether it was Ascension or in each of the Challengers EMEA stages that they played, they were able to qualify for all of them, at least in the first and second stage, but then didn't win any games. That was rough. It's a bit of a hard one to call between these two, but I don't think it's going to make the biggest of difference. Enterprise just have so much quality. I would, again, be stunned if they weren't the team that moved into the playoff stage from this group. Now, moving on to the 4-team groups, this one is not any easier to predict either. But I'm going to try and work from the top down. And my 2 contenders that I think I'm going to put in the ring here is UCAM and Joblife. It's between these two for me. The best team in France versus the previous best team in Spain. And now I say previous because, of course, it was Barca that qualified in stage 2. UCAM here on points. They have slipped off a little bit. And I think that's also part and parcel from playing in Clash. We saw Enterprise as well lose their upper bracket game coming out of Clash just because there's a bit more fatigue for Tier 2 teams this year. They've played a lot more games. It's not been easy for them. And for that reason, I think I am going to drop them down one and say that they will be the runner-up in this group. The Joblife team, if we take a look at it here on Wikipedia, led by Enzo, great fundamental teams that he has. Doma, Kamek, it's like a mini Fnatic, an old school Fnatic, I guess you could say, but from different eras, like 3 different eras of players that we have. Chiwa, absolutely stalwart. Got his visa now, so if Joblife do make it to the latter stages of this year, if we do see them there, which I expect to alongside Enterprise as well, this is one of the big projects that has a lot of future. He's going to be there. Runner's return to Duelist was really, really interesting to me because he hadn't played that since like the latter end of 2024 with Vitality, I think. And honestly, it had not been great for him. But the biggest thing with this team is just that he needed a confidence boost coming out of the GX project, which ultimately didn't work out for him. I think what he wanted to do and what his best roles were directly clashed with Pipson's idea for the team. So he looks much more comfortable here, much more at home. I love the coaching staff on this team too. I think Larson and Skaz kind of proved their worth with the team that they had, which they cobbled together towards the end of last year. It's looking like Joblife are probably going to be the favourites for this group, but UCAM did play incredibly well, exceptionally well in Clash. Olizer is a fantastic player. Their game plans did revolve heavily around Bisque and his use of the operator at times, and I think that did limit them a little bit, so I would like to see them play a bit more of a traditional double duelist, maybe get Famsi back on the roll again, because I thought his scan was exceptional, his fade in particular, but we know that he can do it, so why not lean into it a little bit, I suppose. Sometimes you do just have to play what's meta if you want the best results to give yourself a higher ceiling of performance, and they have the players. Bald's in-game leading also impressed me quite a lot. So yeah, I think this is a great team. They'll finish top 2 in my eyes. I'm then going to put Pixel Lumina in 3rd. Real combination of players from all over the place, right? Return of the Lear, Chazza from Bonk, a team that I was maybe expecting to see representing Northeast but didn't. Element is the X factor on the Duelist. We had him place 3rd with CGN back in 2024. Ascension, he's exceptional. I think it's Kaya that should be in-game leading for this team. Doesn't specify. Anyway, Kaya previously has in-game leading experience. I kind of expect it to be him. Shimply also pretty good. These are names which have been active within their respective region and within Northeast all of last year. They've proven that they can go to these events again, but they have struggled in the group stage. I'm going to put them there, and now with this being a 4-team group, unfortunately, I got to stick Stallions at the bottom. It doesn't make it obvious where they end up, but the reason why I have them here is they posted a statement on socials recently suggesting that maybe participation for them wasn't a guarantee. I don't want to say that they're going to finish, much higher than some of these more established teams, maybe. Maybe they could finish above Pixel Lumina. I think that's possible. That's absolutely possible, or even a runner-up on a good day. But I'm not holding out too much hope for that to actually go ahead and happen. Akai looked like the best prospect that MENA were going to have in an era when you had, you know, Aves and other names still floating around, even some of the newer ones like Exit, potentially. But yeah, I don't think he's necessarily playing at the level that he used to now with that time away, and I would be surprised if they're able to qualify to playoffs. That's ultimately what I'm saying, because there's really not very much between finishing second, third, fourth in some of these groups than actually qualifying if you are just dominating your group and you are the force to be reckoned with. Final group is a strange one. It feels like the most random teams that we've got piled together. You look at all of these here and I'm thinking, yeah, Challengers EMEA event, right? The guys that we remember. And then we've got S2G returning for the first time since play-ins 2023, if memory serves. MIR, first outing for them. GNG, first interregional as well. But then mandatory from Ascension before. And I think with that, I'm just going to go on familiarity. France as a region, very strong, as is Turkey, my top two. And I think that we'll be getting the best of them here in this stage of the competition. You look at this roster, I honestly thought there was half a chance that they would win France in stage one. They didn't. This, at its core, is the team which was kept from last year. Takas specifically, Shin as well were both there, while we had Enzo calling the shots. He's defected over to their rivals, and the opposite way, we've seen Kadavra come in for mandatory now. He's represented all of the big content creator-led orgs in France at this point in time. Savaya is a huge pickup from KC Blue Stars disbanding. He was with Fnatic in the off-season. We saw a little bit of him subbing in when Boaster wasn't available. Really, really strong team. And for S2G, I think the thing that kind of stops me from saying, yeah, this roster's actually going to do a little bit better is probably because there are quite a lot of unknowns here. And yes, that's what Turkey was always about. Your Ulfs of the world, your Pacifics of the world, they didn't become household names overnight. It took time. Batu is obviously someone with heaps of potential, but him playing on in-game leader maybe reduces that if he's having to micromanage quite a bit. Riazi has always been consistent, but Kachao, Hexacoil, some of these guys that have come in from their academy team, I'm yet to see them show the level that they really can. I do still have 2 slots left here to try and fill out. I think GNG are probably going to go bottom for me. I hate to do this to MENA, I really do. They came from the more competitive half of the region in North Africa, but I still think it's just tough for them, especially looking at their team in general. Big ups to Cunha. I think that guy is a sensational talent, and the death of the Portuguese league was really harsh on him as a player developing individually, but I think that's what I've got to go with here. And MIR in third, they've got Redgar leading them. Not to say that that's going to be like a huge boon to anything here, but at least with some of the younger players that they've got on the team, he should be able to mentor them to a decent finish and not just crumble at the first hurdle. It would be cool to see them go further, but I don't know if that's realistic in this first Challengers EMEA competition for them. So there you have it. That is my preview for this event. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'm sure plenty of people probably have their own 10 cents. I've not been able to watch the most tier 2 so far this year. I will admit, by no means am I proclaiming to be an oracle. However, if I had to give you a list of names of players to watch out for, then just to go over it once again, if that's what you came here for, then you'll be looking at Shinnok, you're going to be looking at Jamalinho, you're going to be probably looking at Savaya as well on mandatory. I think that's a fair shout. Kozi here on Enterprise, GSR on Liquid Academy. And then in terms of anyone else, you know what? I might even throw Kayux into this one as well on Barca, because I think he has a lot of potential. And same with Akai, if he can roll back the years, and show us the form that he previously had. So that's all from me. If you did enjoy this, if you found it helpful, please leave a like. And again, give me your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe, as most of my viewers are not. And we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye for now.